Hello and welcome to part 2 of this 3-part video about the top 5 savings accounts in Canada, according to Jenny Pershin. So in this video, we're going to talk about the HISA, or the High Interest Savings Account, the RRSP, or the Registered Retirement Savings Plan, and the TFSA, the Tax-Free Savings Account. Please keep in mind that this is a high-level summary of how these accounts work. By the end of these 3 videos, you'll have a good basic understanding of what the accounts are about and why you might want to consider utilizing them on your financial independence journey. But when it comes to the nuances of every account, I will leave links down below that will explain each account in detail. If you were to plot the 3 accounts that we're talking about in this video on a chart describing how easy it is to access money in those accounts and when you probably will want to access that money, this is what that chart will look like. Although you can take out money out of these accounts at any time, this is kind of a reflection of how strategic you might want to be with that money. The HISA is a non-registered account for when you need maximum accessibility to your money. It's typically good for keeping an emergency fund in, whereas the TFSA and the RRSP are designed to help you save for bigger purchases and retirement. A high-interest savings account is simply a savings account that pays a higher rate of interest compared to a regular savings account. The HISA is typically the most commonly suggested account when it comes to building up an emergency fund. On all the accounts in our list, this is the only account that really is a saving account. It's not an investment account because you don't have to purchase any investments within that account to gain some interest on it. Banks make their money by taking your money that you hold in the bank, lending it out to other people, charging them interest, and then giving you a little bit of interest in return as a thanks. So whereas a savings account might pay you 0.3 or 0.4% interest, you could get 3%, 4%, sometimes even 5% on an HISA. The minimum age to open a high interest savings account typically depends on the financial institution that you're opening it at, but usually it's around 18 or 19 years old. It's commonly advised to open your HISA at an online bank because online banks can offer you a higher rate of interest since they don't have all the operating costs that traditional physical banks have. However, if you prefer in-person customer service, or if you need quick and easy access to an ATM because you're a cash user, it might be better to open up an HISA at a regular physical bank. Look for an account that is completely free, no fees, no minimums, and also be wary of promotional interest rates because oftentimes banks will hold these really high interest rates for maybe 5 or 6 months, but then afterwards the interest rate gets actually quite bad. Another thing to note is that the higher balance you have in a high interest savings account, typically the more interest will be paid, but that interest is still not going to be as much as you'll likely get on investments. So I personally don't keep a lot of money in a high interest savings account. So those were HISAs. Let's now jump onto the other side of the timeline and discuss RRSPs. I'm covering RRSPs before TFSAs because if you understand RRSPs, TFSAs will be super easy to understand. An RRSP, or Registered Retirement Savings Plan, is a tax-advantaged account designed to help you save for retirement. It's also important to know that even though this is called a Registered Retirement Savings Plan, you don't necessarily have to be retired. In fact, you can actually withdraw this money at any point, but there is a strategic way to go about withdrawing from an RRSP, which we will talk about in this video. There is no minimum age to open an RRSP, but there is a maximum age of 71 years old. You can open up an RRSP with any financial institution of your choice, but oftentimes they're also offered through your employer if your employer has an agreement with some financial institution. An RRSP is an investment account, so it's not enough to simply put money into the account like you would with an HISA. You have to actually buy investments with that money, whatever investments are offered by your financial institution. RRSPs are known as what's called tax-deferred accounts because you don't pay tax right now, but you pay tax later. The tax advantage that you get from the RRSP is that any income that you put into the RRSP, you can deduct from your taxable income. So effectively, this income is pre-tax income. If your RRSP is provided by your employer, you'll see that that money is deducted automatically from your paycheck. So the way that it works is that you deposit your pre-tax income into the account. Sometimes your employer will also deposit some kind of contribution. You buy investments with that income. Those investments grow in value, generate you money. That is all tax-free growth. So you don't have to pay any tax on that investment income. However, when you take that money out of the account, that is when the money is considered taxable income. You should be taking it out when you're in a lower income tax bracket, whether that means that you're retired or maybe you're just not working full-time, and therefore you pay much less in taxes to the CRA compared to how much you would have paid when you were making the peak amount of money that you were making. This is why the account is called tax deferred, because all of that money grows tax-free, and then finally you pay taxes in the future. At the time of filming this video, the contribution limit is either 18% of your gross income of the previous year, or the maximum dollar limit published by the CRA every year. Any contribution room that you don't use this year or in any given year will carry forward to the following year. But once you withdraw money out of that account, you don't get that contribution room back. Sometimes mistakes happen and you might accidentally over-contribute to your RRSP. So for this reason, there's a $2,000 cushion that you can actually over-contribute over your lifetime. If you go over that lifetime limit of $2,000, your extra bit of contribution over the $2,000 will be subject to a penalty of 1% per month until you withdraw that money, aka correct the error. You can't just contribute to your RRSP indefinitely and avoid paying taxes for the rest of your life. So because of this, at the age of 71, your RRSP has to be converted into what's known as an RRIF, or a Registered Retirement Income Fund. With an RRIF, you'll have to make withdrawals and pay taxes on them. That is kind of beyond the scope of this video, but that's just something to know. Now let's get into TFSAs. This is another registered investment account in which you have to purchase investments that will grow in the account. And you have to be the age of majority typically in order to open this account. A TFSA is what's known as a tax sheltered account because any money that you put into the account is after-tax income, and then all of your investments grow tax-free, and when you withdraw it, it's also completely tax-free. You could spend that on a vacation, a wedding, a car, whatever you want to spend it on, and it's all yours to keep. The one exception here is US dividend-paying stocks. If you hold any of these in your TFSA, they will be subject to 15% tax that will be withheld by the US. There are contribution limits associated with the TFSA, which are published by the CRA every year. Contribution room starts to accumulate at age 18, no matter what the age of majority is in your province, and it carries over every single year. When you withdraw money from your TFSA, you actually get that contribution room back the next year. So your contribution room for any given year would be the contribution room that's available as per the CRA in that year, plus any unused contribution room previously, plus any withdrawals that you made in the previous year. Since TFSAs aren't really related to income tax like RRSPs, you don't have to be so strategic with taking out your money as you might have to be with the RRSP. However, make sure that you're keeping track of your contributions because TFSAs don't have that $2,000 cushion that RRSPs have, and they're subject to the same 1% per month penalty just like RRSPs. That concludes part 2. In part 3, we're going to talk about the FHSA and the RRSP, designed to help you save for your first home as well as for a child's post-secondary education. Keep on watching part 3 if you're interested to learn more.